Hi, and welcome to The Curling Show, the podcast that brings you interviews with the sport's top athletes and the people who shape the game. I'm Dean Gemmel, and at Curling's listener-supported podcast, we're back this week with two players from Manitoba. One a veteran and this one, a young player having a season he wishes was going a little better than it is. The guy they call Gunner, and if you look him up on YouTube, you'll see it's not just because of his last name. Jason Gunnlaugson, welcome to The Curling Show.
Hello, Dean. Thanks for having me.
All right, Jason. Let's start with the season so far for your team. Daley Peters replaced Reid Carruthers at skip. Justin Richter and Tyler Forrest remained at front end. And the result, I'm afraid I have to say, is a bit underwhelming. But then again, I'm not sure what the expectations were at the start of the year. What's your opinion on the results so far?
Well, I don't think anybody could have our results and be bragging about them. They haven't been the best, and exactly what we wanted. But on the other hand, we knew when we brought a new player, especially at the skip position in, it was probably going to take some time. Unfortunately, with the trials process and our goal being to maybe make the pre-trial, time wasn't something we had a lot of. So we just kind of mashed it in and maybe forced things a little bit with a real hectic schedule and a new team. But so far, at least everything's been pretty positive from the guys' standpoint, and everyone's getting along and having a good time, even though the winning hasn't been there right away.
What's the biggest difference between playing with Reid and playing with Daley?
I don't know. They're probably as opposite as people could be, really, I think. So it's been very fun for me because I really have always loved playing the third position, and that's one of the challenges is getting to deal with different skips, and having two that are so different is a lot of fun. Daley's a really, really high-energy guy, really a great big weight hitter. Reid was a pretty calm guy, almost a lot of the time passive, and just a phenomenal drawer, being his strength. It's pretty much the complete opposite, so it's been a lot of fun dealing with that.
It's interesting. I sort of got the sense. I know Reid a little bit. I don't know Daley, but watching a game on Curl TV, I got a sense that maybe you were actually trying to be a little less intense than you were when you played with Reid.
Yeah, I think that that's an important part of just being a teammate in any game, is just wanting to, find a balance, going between the players. And with Daley, obviously, I'm kind of there to be his sober second thought, whereas with Reid, he's a lot more laid back. So bringing a little more fire to the team could be better for the team, I think. So I think controlling myself a little bit that way is just something to try and help the team.
It's an important thing. I think some people at the start of the year, when they started with the team, and they really have to think about where do I fit in with this team, right, as opposed to just, I'm going to go out and play.
Yeah, I think so. Especially, I think that if you have the ability to think about that and do it, it's cool. I play with some really good guys who are a lot of fun to play with, so anything I can do to help them make the team better is pretty awesome.
Hey, I have to admit I lose track every year of who's in and who isn't when it comes to the Safeway Provincial in Manitoba. Are you guys in a zone playdown? And if you are, is it a city or a rural zone?
We're playing out of a rural zone. We've played out of Beausejour for the last 3 years. Our second, Justin, lives out there, and it's just been, we've got some sponsors out there, and the curling club has been really kind to us, so we really enjoy going out there and practicing and playing out of that zone. So that's what we've been doing, and it starts, I guess, in early January. We play the MCT Championship and then on to the zone, so hopefully we can have some success there and get to the Safeway.
Now, are there any berth spiels left? The MCA, I guess, but...
Yeah, it's like the Manitoba Curling Tour Championship. If you win, you get a spot.
Right.
And then you play a zone, which ours will be somewhere around 5 to 8 teams. The winner gets a spot, and if you don't win, then 2 weeks later you play the MCA. They've redone the whole format. I'm not 100% sure on how it is, but I think it's kind of become more like a big double knockout now for 5, 6 spots, something like that.
Yeah, before you just couldn't get out of that spiel, could you?
No, you definitely couldn't. They've definitely changed some things. They brought it down to 8 ends in all the events, which is something I'm a big fan of. I just think the game's a lot better with the 8 ends than the 10 ends, but I know some people disagree.
That's a good point. I was going to ask you about that, actually. That was one of my run-back questions, so we'll try it now. 8 ends versus 10, I think this weekend at the National showed that 8 ends, really doesn't impact. We saw teams come from 3 back and win.
I think that 8 ends is perfectly fine. All along, my biggest thing that I loved about 8 ends was that they can make the ice a lot better. For the 8 ends, they don't have to worry about it breaking down as much. They can make it curl more. And we were for the 3 or 4 years before they went to 8 ends, we were playing on a game where by the 6th, 7th, 8th end, the game was almost unplayable down the middle, which is where everything's happening with the 4-rock rule. So it's like not really a point. Like you run the first 2 ends, and then the last 2 ends, you're just guessing on draw weight. Like it makes a lot more sense to just play 8. We'll get going right at it for the most part, and have an interesting game the whole way.
Yeah, ice condition is a good point because I think with the new brush heads too, and a few other things, the ice breaks down in a hurry, and with 10 ends, they have to be careful about how it starts. And 10 ends feels like a marathon now if you play it. It's funny, it's only a half hour longer, but it feels like forever.
This is true.
I don't think I was the only one who was somewhat disappointed to hear last spring when you and Reid said you wouldn't be curling together anymore. You had played your way into some Capital One Grand Slams, and to be honest, I always appreciated the volatility in the combination. The story seemed to be that both of you had been interested in a spot on either Jeff Stoughton or Kerry Burtnick's team, and that created friction. My own feeling is that anyone's always interested in playing with those guys. So what really happened?
Really, I think that we were just probably about ready to go our separate ways. Both Reid and I don't think that any other team issues were the fault of it. I think that it was just something that was looking like it was going to happen. It's kind of interesting now is that I talk to Reid and we go for lunch sometimes, play some golf. Like it's almost like our relationships become better without the stress of the curling. So that's kind of been really cool byproduct of it. It definitely sucks that we accomplished a lot and then aren't playing together now. But I'm totally unhappy with how everything went down. It's been pretty positive for me. He's had some good success too, so it's been pretty positive for him. So, I mean, it's something you definitely see in the future, I guess. But for now, I think we're both pretty happy where we are.
It's an interesting point. Sometimes you have to break up a team to save a friendship.
This is definitely true. This is something I've said to many people. Like, you're always friends with the people you grow with, but you do have to watch and make sure that you don't, even though you're spending so much time with them, that's not it, because sometimes when that happens, you can lose friends through curling, and then it's like, oh no. It definitely has been nice that in the few breakups in curling that I've been through, because I haven't always been with the same team, for the most part, they've gone well.
How did you feel about the fact that Reid got a spot in the first Capital One Grand Slam of the year, based largely, I guess, on the results he had playing with you and that Dan had playing with Kerry Burtnick?
Well, I think that most of his points come, obviously, from Dan and Reid. I mean, Reid obviously earned his points. I mean, I've been talking to the WCT saying that I think that it's goofy that back-end players get more points than front-end players, but I mean, that's a different issue for them. I mean, he makes that decision. Right now, when you make team decisions, you're looking at who brings points. I mean, we made a decision to get Daley, who we thought was an excellent player and who was proven to be an excellent player, but he had no points, so we knew that going in, so we're not surprised. I mean, they earned, both Dan and Reid, more than earned their points, so you can't be mad about that.
I think Scott Pfeiffer had the best take on that maybe a year ago when they started this thing, and he thought it should be 20% for each player and 20 for an intact team.
Oh, for sure. That's definitely the way it was, and I think it was even like that or close to that, and then they changed it just without saying anything to anybody, so it was kind of weird how it all of a sudden went to 25-15. It doesn't make any sense, and
well, and he also had a thought that you would have some deduction if you played front end and then you moved to skip or third and with a team. And I thought that was fair too, actually.
Yeah, well, you could like the system. Some people don't like because it's complicated, and some people don't like that there's flaws in it and want to make it more complicated. So that's always a fine balancing point, right? So I definitely agree. I think if it was just 20-20-20, like all the way across the board, 4 players in the team, I think that that would make it pretty fair for the most part. And I mean, if people really want to make a team based on points, that's probably not a good long-term strategy, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's probably the best point. Basing your team on points for one season is probably not a good idea. Hey, you've become known, of course, for being able to throw the rock extremely hard. You have a real extension when you throw the heat, but what else can you tell other curlers about what you try to do when you're throwing it hard?
I don't know. I just learned throwing it hard really, really young. I mean, I'm not a very big guy now, but I was really.
Yeah, what are you? You're about $150, I think, right? So
I don't know how much I weigh, but I'm not huge. And I don't know, I just learned to throw it hard because you have to be able to throw at a reasonable speed to make some shots. So, and then from there, I don't know, just kind of growed into a little stick, I guess. But I think that the main thing for throwing it hard is just to, in practice, being willing to push, your boundaries. Don't be obsessed to always look pretty in practice. You got to make sure that you push your boundaries on that, especially for, some of the younger players or whatever. And then, I don't know, just kind of fire it down there. It's just something I do.
I happen to think big weight is one of the most exciting aspects of the modern game, but do you ever worry that you overdo it a bit sometimes?
I mean, there's been times, in fun spiels where I've tried to throw it hard just to throw it hard, but I'm sure everybody's done that. When we're playing, in a serious spiel, I'm definitely never trying to... I've never thought consciously when I'm throwing, I'm going to throw this extra hard. It's just about throwing what I think is the best to make the shot. I don't think that's a factor.
I should tell people who don't know it to look it up on YouTube because there's some great stuff from behind the glass from the mixed in Calgary a couple years ago. Hey, like so many of the good young players in Manitoba, you throw tuck, something that's becoming a bit of a lost art outside the province. What do you think the tuck delivery offers over the balanced delivery?
I think that I have a theory that it just a lot depends on how high or low your face is for perspective. I think that I've played a lot of pool and you don't see people having their head totally away from the cue and trying to be good at lining something up. I think that the lower tuck delivery definitely allows for a better natural hit game. Obviously, you can always practice and become better, but I think it just makes more sense to be a better hitter. I think that sometimes, watching around the province, you see a lot of Manitoba tuckers who are good hitters and aren't the greatest drawers. The ones who are great, like Stoughton and Burtnick, can do both phenomenally, obviously. But most low tuckers are good hitters, so I think that's what it offers.
Yeah, I mean, that does seem to be the way, and it seems like tuckers have to work a little harder to draw well. Hey, I had National Development Coach Paul Webster on the show recently, and to be fair, I should have asked him this question, but I didn't, so I'll ask you. As one of the better young players in the game, have you ever worked with a CCA coach or been to one of those development camps? And if you have, do they understand the mechanics of the tuck delivery?
I've been to a few. I went to some when I was younger in juniors, and I had just some awful experiences with people who wanted me to move my foot forward, my tuck foot, which basically meant become a flat foot. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is not going to happen. But the last few years, I've gotten to spend a lot of time with the CCA coaches now, done a couple of the weekend camp type things where they've come into Winnipeg, and I've worked with Paul Webster, and it's been nothing but a great experience. So we got to work actually one weekend. Paul came out and worked with us for most of a weekend, and it was really a cool experience. So I definitely think that they've turned the page and stopped obsessing about making everybody flat-footed and more about making everybody a better curler, which I can definitely support.
Well, talking to Paul, I did sense that they're not trying to make everybody throw exactly the same, although, as I said to him, I think the instruction that they give to the general curling population still doesn't match up with what you see, with how you see guys play on the World Curling Tour.
Yeah, I think that might be the case, but I think that also some of that could be some of the things that maybe some top guys do you couldn't teach someone to do by playing once a week,
Fair enough, yeah.
If you want,
Yeah, you can't. I mean, Kevin Cooey, for example. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just it's just like a golf. There's some golf shots that if you're teaching someone who played once a week, you would never teach them, even though the pros use it all the time, just because they're just simply not good enough to do that. So I think that for a base level teaching, they probably do a good job giving someone that they can play once a week and enjoy the game and then go from there, right?
Although I would argue that the basics of the full swing in golf are pretty similar.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
You're not teaching, you don't
expect
like
people
a
flop shot or something like that.
Right.
You watch them do it all the time, but you just be like, oh, take a wedge out here and just bump and run it. Or
yeah, for sure.
That kind of thing.
Right.
So I think that I agree that some things that they do, I don't do myself, or because I've watched the top players and they don't do it, but I don't think that that's a major fault to them. That's not shouldn't be their major issue. So.
Hey, I know you're one of those guys that's always looking at the game and wondering if there isn't a new, better way to do something on the ice. Listening to you talk about practice and not being too worried about how good you look when you practice shows me that too. I want you to share with my audience, though, one of your theories you have on sweeping.
Oh, goodness. You asked me about my harebrained sweeping ideas. Oh, I just think that because they've done studies and they show that the inside person does most of the effective sweeping, like they're doing 2/3 or more of the work, I thought that they should have two different brooms. The outside person should have a broom more designed to the cleaning, because the two things in sweeping is obviously making it go farther and keeping the paths clean. So I want them to have a wider broom that does a better job cleaning, and I want the inside guy to have a broom with less width so that he spends more of his time in the path, thinking that you'll be able to get more power that way. It's just an idea I have. I obviously would have to somehow find a way to test it, but it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense to have two of the same broom when you're doing two different tasks, basically.
What do you think of switching? Do you guys switch?
We don't really switch. We switch sometimes, only if someone's bagged or something, but not to make it move more usually. I think that sweeping, like if it's cutting to the inside, which is I think opposite to Furby, I don't know. People have different opinions on it. It probably doesn't make too much of a difference. I think the biggest thing is doing something that your whole team believes in, so that you feel like you're trying your hardest is probably more important actually than the act of sweeping the inside or outside of the rock.
Yeah, sometimes I think that's what switching offers, though. Just the front end players, like something to keep their head in it and feel like they're doing a little bit more.
Exactly. If you think that you're doing the most in like every aspect of the game, I think it just makes you a better player. So I can't take away from anybody who's really trying to be their best, even if maybe some of their ideas are going to be harebrained.
Yeah, I don't think you wear two different shoes. But what do you think about two different shoes for an equipment maker to sell? So you could have a selection of hack foot shoes. I think you do two different things with your feet in curling. I don't see why we wear the same shoes.
So like an off foot and a slider foot? I thought you were talking about different slider foot.
No.
I was like, that would be interesting too.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like we're basketball players or something, where you're running and jumping. It's the same for both feet, and we do entirely different things with our feet.
I think that there might be some truth to that, and I mean, it's definitely some people in Manitoba who have one or the other of the same shoe forever and switch the other one. So I definitely have seen that happen. But I think the problem for the curling manufacturers is they've got to just sell their product. And
right. I can't imagine the cost of making a bunch of right foot shoes.
Exactly. And if curling grew, which is definitely where I would like to see it go, and to be, so it's maybe not ever going to be like it's not going to be like golf. I'm not trying to say that, but if it went towards more of that direction, we had people making a little bit of money and doing it more serious, I think you'd see developments like that happening. Because right now, curlers aren't that good at curling yet, and as they improve, which they are rapidly, things like that will become important. But right now, when even the best people in the world are still unable to draw to the forefoot sometimes, I think that because of that situation where they're not that good yet, those little edges aren't as important because big edges are still to be had.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the problems, the challenges for equipment makers. You can buy a new golf club and notice the difference fairly quickly, whereas a new brush or new shoes, it's more incremental.
Yeah, it's a very small edge you would gain by any improvement in it. So it's hard for them to sell you on it being totally revolutionary, because your 35-year-old shoes and your new shoes are going to feel the same unless you're pretty darn good at the game already. So right. I think that's a problem for them, yeah.
But I don't know. I do think that people could get new shoes and it would help even a club curler. But I do want to see you guys out there with one tiny broom and a big broom sometime, or a big brush sometime. So, anyways, finally, you study the game and other players. Let's talk about other guys you'll play against. Take John Morris, Richard Hart, and John Meade out of the equation for a moment, and give me the names of some other thirds who you feel are a real challenge to play against.
Well, I think not adding Kevin Cooey to that list is almost...
Well, yeah, I could have.
He's pretty phenomenal.
I was giving you some latitude there to go somewhere, Jason.
Okay, well, Kevin
Cooey for sure.
Cooey a nice
Kevin Cooey, there. Randy Furby, yeah.
Furby's obviously great. I think that Furby almost plays a different style, but plays it perfect. So it's kind of a different outlook there. I think that you can gain more in maybe the way you play the game more so than, if I'm playing a hack weight hit and roll behind a center guard, I'm not going to play it better than Randy. If I play great, I'm going to play it the same, So maybe I have to gain advantage either the way we call or making a shot that he doesn't make. But as far as other guys, like, I don't know, even in our province now, like, way to Alberta all come to visit. I was joking to the guys at the All-Star Third Award that our provincial just became a heck of a lot harder with Walchuk and Kevin Park there.
Right.
But no, so obviously they're both, I think that at the top of the game, pretty much all the thirds are, at minimum, very consistent. So I think
well, give me someone in the Tier 2 group who a lot of people may not know.
Well, I think that B.J. Neufeld from Team McEwen's a guy who I've had a lot of respect for. I've played against him, like, he was a year younger than me, so I played with him all through juniors, kind of. And competing against him was always a lot of fun. There's a guy who's definitely under the radar, not a big personality at all, but a great curler.
Hey, you're talking about Randy Furby there for just a moment. The great quote I read somewhere from him was he told, I can't remember if it was Shilly or somebody was playing with him, he said, stop hitting the broom and start making shots.
Yeah, that's something that I'm a firm believer in. You have to throw the rock properly to make a shot, not properly to hit the broom. Like, I don't know, the difference of being like an inch in out or an inch out in at the end can be so much on some ice that that's a lot more important than, you could just miss it by 4 inches and actually be closer type thing. So I definitely agree with Randy on that. I think that was a story about maybe Langer or someone like that, like someone sparing for him and him just being like, like, move the broom, but Randy's like, no, just make it. Like,
yeah,
it
I can't remember where I read it either, but
it doesn't really matter. You just got to make your shot, and I think that all players got to know that, and that's something that I really have always liked playing with people who are really into the game at all positions. I think that's so important, and like that's something that I really like about playing with the guys I currently play with, is that they're all into the game all the time, and it's not like, oh, I hit the broom, I should have made it. It's like, okay, well, what happened? How can we be better type thing. So I think that's important.
It's an interesting point, I think, especially for recreational curlers. I've played with recreational people, and they'll never ask for more ice or less ice, and they think that that's almost something they shouldn't do. And I said, if you think you can make the shot with more or less ice, ask for it.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't see how asking for more ice, if asking for more ice is a problem on your team, you have bigger issues than you know what to do with. So I don't see the problem in that.
All right, Jason, we finished with a run back. I give you a topic, you give me your thoughts in 1 to 3 words.
Okay.
The Safeway Championship format.
The format's good. I think that in coming years it's going to have to be changed just because the numbers are dropping.
It looks like some changes are in the air for it, but Kathy Gauthier's on-air analysis of your team during your 2006 run to the provincial final.
2006 run? Oh, they hated us in 2006, but they loved us in 2007. So
when did you lose? I thought you were runner-up in
2006 we were runner-up, but in 2007 we played 2 more games on TV and they loved us. So
2006 they were ripping you the whole time.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I'll say that they came around to us, and that's all I could ask for.
Yeah, I thought they were 2006. They kept every other shot. It was, they can't say that. I mean, granted, you were an extreme character during that, if I remember, but. The first time I saw you play. But anyways, I thought they were a little harsh in the end. The MCA spiel.
The MCA spiel, I think it's really good. I think that it, like a lot of things in curling, it's just that, like, with drinking and driving and drinking overall cutting down, it's just, I don't know, it's almost like it needs to make some changes, and I hope the changes they made work really well for it.
Yeah, it's interesting, some things like that. We talk about the fact that people used to hang around the curling club longer afterwards, and so many of these things are societal, and we just have to figure out how to deal with them. And unfortunately, sometimes events seem less. I'm not saying because you used to be able to go in the MCA and get ripped every night either. Just suddenly, time. Guys can't commit the same amount of time they used to.
Yeah, I think that society's changed, and curling has to change with it, and one of the big problems is that every time we try, like anyone in curling tries to make a change, there's so much resistance to any change, which, is anything in life. People hate change. But if curling wants to grow, it's going to have to make some changes, and some people aren't going to like. But hopefully the people who control that are bright people and can really help grow the game, because it is a cool game.
All right, sports psychologist.
I've never worked too much with a sports psychologist. I think that it's another avenue that would be there to squeak out a little bit more edge versus other teams that weren't doing it. So I think it's probably quite valuable. But again, like I say, I'm not sure how many teams are actually there yet.
James Kirkness playing second.
Yeah, I think that James will do well playing second for those guys. I think he's had his struggles the last few years, so I think that he's going to get his confidence back with them, and they'll be a threat in the playdowns.
Corey Naharney.
The doctor's a great guy. I think he kind of got a little unlucky 2 years or 2 of 3 or whatever when he kind of made it to the slams with Fry, and then Fry left to play with Stoughton, and then he got with Burtnick and had some good success. I don't know. I think he's a great player and pretty funny guy and a good team guy.
Pat McCallum.
Oh, good old Patty Mac. I don't know. Patty Mac's kind of goofy, but I think that it's just two polar opposites when you have curling shoes and not. I think that maybe we're going to find out later that some kind of drugs get injected when he has curling shoes on, because he's a really good guy, but sometimes in the curling ice it gets a little ridiculous.
Rob Fowler.
Rob Fowler? Robbie's a good guy to compete against. We've obviously had back in the last few years, had some tension against that team, but he's played very well against us in the past, and it'll be exciting, hopefully, to play them in the select.
Team Wayne Madaw's win at last weekend's National.
Johnny Mead's my idol, so I'm really pumped for him. John Epping's a good guy that we've got to meet a lot and talk on the tour, so that was kind of cool. And I'm pretty big fans of that whole team, so it's definitely, I like seeing them win. It's kind of shocking not to see a Howard or Martin win, but it'll be cool just that somebody else won, and I'm sure they'll be back crushing everybody soon.
Yeah, I think the parity's valuable right now. I mean, I think, Glenn Howard goes 1-4 at that event after beating everybody all year, and but I think that points out that curling is tough, and so I think it's good to see. I mean, certainly Wayne's not a surprise winner. I mean, geez,
I think your parity's imagined. I think both those teams are way better than everybody else, honestly. They just consistently beat everybody else. Yeah, when Howard has his worst weekend of the year by a mile, he loses some games, but all of them are close games. Even when they play their absolute worst and the other top teams play their best, it's still a close game. They're just better. I think Martin's in the same category where they're just better. Howard seems to this year be a little bit more consistent, but those two teams are definitely a step up on the other team.
Yeah, I don't mean to overstate that. I think you're right. They are a step up. I mean, I think Howard lost a game when the team average was above 90%, so I don't know what happened there, but I do think it's valuable when other teams win, and certainly a guy like, you got Wayne and John Mead. I mean, they're going to win some events. So, and finally, Jason, mixed curling.
Mixed curling, I don't know. It's just an interesting, goofy thing to do at the end of the year. I don't know. I've played a couple years. It looks like I'm not going to play this year. I don't know. No, it's just something to do, I guess. When all you do is curl, you just play in whatever event you can, I guess. All
right, Jason, thanks for your time. You guys have sponsors, so let me know who they are.
Okay, Sonova Credit Union out in Beausejour and surrounding small town Manitoba.
So where is Beausejour, anyways? How far from Winnipeg?
It's like 45 minutes from Winnipeg.
It's like a suburb.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it doesn't feel that way, does it?
Except we're in Winnipeg,
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not really a suburb.
Here in the New York area, that's a close suburb. So anyways.
Yeah, exactly. That's downtown. No, so, and then we've got Edie Construction and Gunnlaugson Spray-On, who also sponsor us. So that's pretty good to have some people backing you, definitely.
All right, Jason. Listen, good luck the rest of the way with your team. I'd like to see you guys get in the mix and do well through the playdowns.
No, we wouldn't mind that either, Dean.
That's Jason Gunnlaugson on The Curling Show. Thanks to everyone who's made a donation at thecurlingshow.com. And if you're struggling to come up with a gift for a curler this holiday season, there are some good options even in these recessionary times. Books, for instance. Bob Weeks has done his usual fine work in Curling, Etc., published by Wiley, while newcomer Jeffrey Lansdale has contributed weird facts about curling. Consider both and maybe the Women of Curling calendar from the Curling News as well. Finally, if you listen regularly, you'll know that I believe new equipment is always a good choice for any curler at any level. As always, thanks for listening.
How can I tell if it's a dream or just all in my mind?